at Itanile, and I'll be moderating the workshop for this evening. While we wait for more of our participants to join, I would just like to share a bit of what we do at Itanile and how our previous workshop sessions have been. All right. So majorly, Itanile is a sorry, guys, I'm trying to admit people into the workshop.
Okay.
Could you help with that?
I'm also admitting.
Michael, don't worry.
All right.
Just go ahead. When you are the
All
one,
right.
don't worry about those kind of things. There are enough people to handle that. All right, go ahead.
So, all right. So Itanile is a platform interested in publishing and enhancing African stories, right? Last year we underwent a rebranding from being creative freelance writers to Itanile because we realized the need to talk about stories that are peculiar to us as African writers, because generally our experiences as Africans are unique, our experiences as Nigerians are unique, and the stories, the kind of stories we tell are influenced by our experiences, by our realities. And so we believe that every writer, every storyteller deserves a platform to tell their stories in a unique way. And that is what we seek to do at Itanile, to publish, to promote voices, to teach storytelling. And the workshop is one of our initiatives, to get this done. Aside our workshop, we also have biannual magazines where we invite writers to submit to a theme, and we select the best work, and we publish them for free. So these are our investments to just promote and enhance African storytelling, right? So it's always a delight to contribute to the growth of storytelling in Africa. I mean, there is so much work being done across countries and across platforms, and then it's just a beautiful thing to do this. So I'm excited for this evening. I'm thankful for our facilitators who volunteered their time to join this workshop, and many thanks to Dami also for all the work he does at Itanile for the theme. Thank you so much, Dami. All right, so we have quite a lot on our agenda this evening. If you can hear me, please signify.
Yeah, you, Michael.
All right, thank you. So we have quite a lot on our agenda for the evening. We have about four sessions that we'll be covering this evening. If you're a participant, I would suggest that, of course, you get your writing pads, your notepads, your laptop, your phone, to take as many points as needful. And because essentially, the idea of attending workshop is not to feel like the workshop would help you get your writing done, but it's to learn how you can get your storytelling done, how you can get your writing done. The workshop will not get the writing done for you. You would get it done for yourself. Reading the writing book, attending a workshop, attending a training would not get the writing done for you. You will still have to go back to the writing. But the lessons, the stories, the experiences from these workshops would help you become a better storyteller, and that is our aim for this workshop. So without taking too much of our time, I would want us to move on to the first session. So we have, for the first session, we'll be having, excuse me, for the first session, we'll be having Marlene Oluchi. I hope I got the pronunciation right.
I was waiting for you to pronounce it.
Now, personally, I've wanted to meet Marlene for a long time, not like too
Oh
long a
wow.
time. 20 months, I think then she was shortlisted for either a shortlist or a long list for Afitondo Short Story Prize, and um, I went to her profile on Facebook and I loved what I saw, but I don't think I connected. I don't think I made an attempt to connect. So when I found out she would be a facilitator, I was really excited because this is someone I know is very good at what she does. So I'll be running through her, I'll be running through her bio now. Please give me a minute. Um, come on. Okay.
You can maybe check the Telegram group. I think you posted it there, so you can just.
Yes. I've gotten it. I've gotten it. All right. So Marlene Oluchi is an SEO copywriter, a screenwriter, and a communication strategist. She writes optimized website copies and SEO-focused blog posts for brands with proven engagement in global development, gender equality spaces, policy influencing, and advocacy communications. She's familiar with traditional and new media monitoring and engagement. She employs storytelling as the art of writing, maintaining that stories are the bedrock of every brand, every idea translation, and every solutions journey. Storytelling is king and should be utilized at all times. Please make welcome Marlene for our session.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Hope it's evening where all of us are, because I think it's evening here already. It's 4 p.m. So outside what everything he just read, basically I'm someone who writes. So that should cover everything I do. And thank you for having me here. It's actually an honor because I always run away from, teaching about writing because I always feel, can't call a singer to come and teach people how to sing. I don't know how we can teach people to write, but over time I realized that was not right, because as much as some of us just grew up writing, like we're people who write, we're just gifted, we still could not do anything with that gift of weaving words. So we found a channel to channel our thoughts, our words, and creatively, technically work on them, construct them to be able to monetize them. So that's the difference between just being someone who writes and being a professional writer. I think it's the technicality, the technical skills to know how to channel your writing into something you can monetize. So over the years, I realized that even those that came easy, that I felt like, I just woke up and I knew how to do this. I just woke up and I knew how to do this one. I realized that somewhere, somehow, I'd either met people who did this and I saw how they were doing it, or I took courses online or read something online that helped me know that, this is how to write a script. Okay, this is how you format. This is how you look for clusters for SEO. This is how you do this. Without those skills, I would just be someone who writes and writes and writes and with no markets for my writing. So I'm really glad this came up because a lot of us, we float around with a lot of good writing, but we don't know how to monetize it. I remember when I started, when I finished NYC a couple of years ago, of course, I was already writing there, but I was not monetizing. I was not writing corporately. I was busy applying for a lot of publications, applying for a lot of prizes. I just wanted my writing out there. I got published a couple of times, anthologies and all of that. But of course, apart from the honorarium you get and the visibility, there was really no content for me to market. So I remember then when I was thinking, okay, this is something I do so well. This is what I want to do. How do I monetize it? I was like, script writing is the only thing that I can visibly see. Well, to my knowledge then, at that level, script writing was the biggest market for writers I could see. But even that, it felt like everybody I talked to, even people who were already like well-known scriptwriters, everybody kept telling me, Marlene, you can't survive as a writer. You can't survive on writing. You have to find other things to do. Writing should just be like a hobby you get money from. Everybody kept telling me that, and when I finished NYC, I actually carried my CV to go and look for jobs. I think I applied for like over 10 jobs. I went for the first interview. They told me the offer to pay was 100K, I think. Another one offered 150K. I calculated my rent in Abuja. I calculated transportation from Kuba to town every day. I said no. Then I went for the third one, which was a literary mag, and I was so excited that something like that is coming to Abuja. I mean, we get this a lot in Lagos, but rarely here. And the person who was establishing was a young person like me, 25, lawyer, doing a lot of mindful things. I was really excited. And then I got there, and after the interview, they loved my content. And they looked at me and said, they'll pay 60K per month. I said, how? They said, the woman who was with her, with the founder of the mark, said civil servants don't even end up to that, and they still live around your area and they come to town to work every day. So this should be sufficient for a writer. I went back home that day. I sat down, I brought out my portfolio. I came online, I listed the skills, the kind of writings I could be proficient in. I went online, I sourced for materials. The first script I wrote, I did not I just went online, selected 3 scripts from the movies I love, and took time to learn the terminologies, learn how to, in fact, I left Final Draft and all the apps that could help, and manually learned how to format my scripts. And I started putting the word out there, and before you know it, I got my first script endorsement, and I started writing. So this is nice, because I realized over time that a lot of us, we don't really know how to channel our writing to make money from it. And it's important because 3 years later, I'm solely surviving on what my writing brings for me. In fact, a lot of other things I do. If you see me handling communications for organizations, like I work in the development field, I can do programming, I can do a lot of things, but I focused on communications because it's still writing. It's in the NGO space, but it's basically writing. I write and write and write and write. If you see me facilitating workshops, it's because I can sit down, come up with curriculums, research on social issues, write, and pass across what I've written. So basically, everything I do is writing. And 3 years later, I'm making a really good living. Well, to a large extent, for someone who is starting up from writing. Writing feeds me, writing takes care of my family. So I believe and then I see a lot of other people doing it, and there are a lot of opportunities, but a lot of us still think we cannot get money from writing. And throughout all of this, I'll be focusing a lot on just my personal experience, because I've talked to a lot of people and I've come across a lot of really good writers, and I've discovered that what is really central, as much as our methodologies must not be the same, it's still the same method in the industry. Yeah. So I would like to share my experience to show you that, hey, this can work. So you too can look for ways to pave your own way. In everything I do copywriting, which translates to writing for brands, business writing. You write SEOs for blogs, for websites, you write web copies, you write business proposals, you write business plans, you do ideation, you do corporate script writing for adverts, anything corporate writing. I do all of that. I still do my personal writing to get published, and well, of course, that's like my first love. I still write for the NGO space in the development. I still handle comms in the development sector. And the central thing with all of these different types of writing is storytelling. I realized that people relate more. If you want to sell something to me, I want to know the story behind what you're selling. Like, everything is a story. We basically live and breathe stories every day. So like when branding became a big thing, what really is branding? Is telling the story of your brand, of your product or your service or what you're offering. And this is why business is products. This is why everything sells, because you sell a story to me, basically. You're not just selling your products, you're selling a story to me. If you come and tell me that this thing can wash pots better than the other brand we buy in the market, you're telling me a story, because and that's why if you look at a lot of adverts for products, they always look for scripts. They always try to make it relatable for you. Try to depict daily things you do in your daily life, because if whatever you want to pass across, whatever message you want to pass across, if it's not relatable, people would not buy into whatever you have to say. And storytelling is, well, the number one tool. It's not the only tool, but it's the first tool I know that works all the time across all industries. Storytelling. So I'll be sharing how I sorry, I have my notes here, so I jotted down some points. I'll be sharing how I work, my work process as a writer, how I develop stories, how I employ storytelling. Please, can you let me know when I have like 15 minutes to go, so I would start rounding up.
All right.
Yeah.
You actually have 15 minutes to go at the moment.
Okay. All right. So first of all, determine your audience. When you want to write, whatever you want to write, determine your audience. It's very important. If I want to tell a personal story now, yeah, and I'm writing on, let's say, my Facebook, where I'm relatively known, I know the kind of audience I have there. The way I will write on Facebook is not the same way I will write on Instagram. It's also not the same way I write on Facebook, on Twitter, if I need engagement. Because I study the kind of audience how they react to posts or tweets. What kind of communication works better with them? Is it emotional? Do these people like bad boosts? Do these ones key to sub stories? So it's very key. Even when selling a product, if you're a copywriter, if you're a content creator, if you manage social media for brands, it's very important to know the audience. It's not enough that people people want to hear what you have to say, or they need what you're marketing, what you're selling. It's very important to know your audience, because that will help you tailor your language, your style of writing to what is relatable with them. If I'm writing for our parents' generation, I know the kind of words I would not use, not because of religion, not because of culture, but because that is the kind of era they came from. That is the kind of knowledge they're exposed to. That's the kind of communication they are used to. But if I'm writing for us, those of us in our 20s and 30s, I know the kind of language I can use. You understand? So you tailor, you know your audience, so that you will tailor your style of writing, you will tailor your language to something they can relate to. Even if it's your personal writing, if you're writing a story to get published, if you're writing for a brand, whatever writing you're doing, know your audience and tailor your language and style to that audience you're trying to get as yours. Then secondly, finding your voice. It's very important. Have you noticed how something will happen and 10 people can actually tell the same story, but from different angles? But this same thing happened here, everybody's looking at it. That's because, see, the world is so interconnected that our experiences are not so unique. That's why I'll be in Nigeria here, I'll share something, even something cultural, and somebody in Sudan or somebody in South Africa will have the same similar experiences. Just the difference will just be the language, the culture, the method these things happen. Our stories are as unique as they are still very, very interconnected and similar. So how do you now make, and that's why you would have your story, you might be telling a story and like 10 other people in different parts of the world are telling similar stories to yours. Have you seen that? You have ideas, you want to write about things, and then you come out there and see that so many people have written about this thing in their own ways. Now, what makes your own different? That is the point. You don't leave yours because people laugh. You have a voice that is yours. You have a voice. Even if 10 people experience the same thing here, the level of emotions they would experience and express to that same thing is different. That is why if they give us a draft, let's say we have I wish so. Let's read this story, assimilate it, and create our own impressions from the story, our emotions, create whatever we took from that story. You will see that we would most likely have different things to say. There are insights you will have that the next person would not have. So that's why, that is what makes you different from the next writer. Your voice. You own a voice, and that voice is like your identity. No matter how similar stories are, no matter how stories have been told over and over and over again over the years, and still get your audience to listen, because you have a voice that's very, very different from yours. And that's why sometimes, without even, but because you have that, that person has that unique voice, you can identify. So it's very important as a writer to find your voice, and that's why, especially for you're a young writer here who is just starting, it's very important for you not to try. Of course, I absolutely did, but I don't try to write like them. Don't go and take. We did this. I did it when I started out. I tried. I read their work, and I'm wow. This sentence, how you write, how you express yourself, your emotions in your writing. It's very important. And then developing my story. A lot of people, I am one of those people who don't really suffer from writer's block in quotes. Yeah, but it's something that happens all the time. Yeah. How I've been able to overcome that is in making, see, if I'm in this house now, I have like 5 people in this house with me. If I'm writing a story right now, I carry a character, I throw it in my mind, I throw it on my brother. If the character is a male sex worker, how will my brother react in this scenario if he's this male sex worker? What will he say? I will try to imagine my brother's voice. You will see that by the time I do it to my brother, do it to my sister, do it to my friend, I will get different versions, because they would all react differently to this same thing if they were the same character. You understand? So this way, I play around with my characters a lot. I get content. I imagine. The power of your imagination. Your imagination is so powerful, and you can use everything around you, because everything around you is telling you a story. You can wake up today, the food you want to eat, the way you eat it, the dress you want to wear, the things you see people wearing out there. You can create a story from every single thing every day. If I'm finding it difficult creating my character to what I want, all I need to do is go out there. What kind of clothing do I want my character to be wearing? What kind of language? How do I want them to talk? And it's easy for me because I just try to play. Basically, I'm a casting director. I cast my family and everybody around me into my characters. And then I play around with it, imagine what everybody would say. And from there, it never fails to work. I get inspiration to pick out exactly how I want my character to be and which one fits the bill. And then I start developing. So try it as much as, it's very cliche. They always tell you get inspiration from everything around you, but that is how it really is. Try whenever you're developing your story, and also tell a story that means something to you. That is the best way to get to your audience. Whether it's a brand you want to sell something for, whether it's your personal story. See, if it means something to you, it will most likely mean something to people out there. If your story does not mean that much to you, like you don't feel your story, most of the time is a problem. Have you noticed how you write something and you have to dump it to come back to rewrite again till you get to that point where you're like, okay. So it's very important to not just write for writing's sake. Write because it means something to you. When you get to that stage, developing your story won't really be that difficult. It might still be tasking, but not that difficult, because once a story means something to you, it flows. It flows from the heart. It works for me all the time. Okay, so monetizing your arts. as a storyteller. I've mentioned quite a few. Copywriter. See, the difference between you who writes really well, who can weave words, and a copywriter out there, a screenwriter out there, a researcher out there, all of that, a translator, a ghostwriter. The difference between you and them is actually skills, upskilling. The technical part of writing. Knowing how to write is one thing. Knowing the technical aspect of your writing niche is another. And you must not niche down. I tried a lot before I finally figured out which parts of writing I want to do. I studied how to write scripts. I studied how to write copies. I studied how to do research. I studied how to write comms for companies, for organizations. So there's all these technical need bits in every form of writing. Find out which ones interest you. Everything will not interest you. Find out which ones interest you and just get the technical skills. Then the power of social media. I am actually what I am today because of social media. I leveraged on it. It's very important. Especially we know in Nigeria, we don't really have a lot of opportunities where you can just go into the corporate sector and just because of how good you are and how skilled you are, you just land really good jobs as a writer. Leverage a lot on social media. Networks of writers. It's very important to see. Sometimes there was a time we felt networking with other writers is like increasing the competition space for you. No, it is not. There's a lot of collaboration going on. Like a lot of collaboration. Take advantage of it. Leverage your writing on social media. You must not like share your work, but see, network, talk about what you do, talk about your processes. It helps. And people relate. I noticed one thing online. People relate a lot when I share my process. If I make a regular advert post like, oh, bring your copies to me, bring your this, bring your that. People respond, but not as much as when I share, oh, I was writing this copy and I noticed that this brand is this and this brand is that. See, people are watching. They want to know that you know what you are doing. So as you're trying to monetize your skill, it helps to share stories from your storyteller. It helps to share stories from your processes. It's a very, very, very effective marketing skill. Do I say how much time do I have?
You have about 2 minutes more, 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay. So let me round up. So please leverage a lot. See, writing is no more the writing we knew 10 years ago, where if you're not Chimamanda or you're not our popular novelist and the rest, then you're not really doing well in writing. I'm not published, like I don't have a book. I'm not an author, but I've ghostwritten so many books, even for some of our prominent Nigerians. But I don't have a book. You don't have to be an author to even be a writer. See, the way I allowed it anyway, I'm a writer. You don't have to ask me, where's my book? There's a lot, and right now with tech, with the way everything is leveraging on tech, see, writers, we're well positioned to take advantage of the market when we want to monetize. Copywriting, like everybody now wants content creators. They're all stories. These things don't fall from the air. They are stories. Go check all the brands, check everywhere. Everybody is telling a story. Everybody is employing storytelling. So you're at this place where you have this superpower. You have this thing you can wield and make an income from as much as you enjoy it. So don't let it go to waste. There's a lot of opportunity. Even if you come to the tech industry, I was facilitating a workshop for tech, women in tech, and I told them I write for SaaS companies. I write copies. I don't have to know how to code to tell stories that would help people out there know that this your product is something they need for their businesses. You understand? Like stories are they are using storytelling for everything. Everybody wants people to create content for them. Everybody has a story to tell, to sell. You understand? So key into it. There's a lot you can do as a writer. Just pick technical skills. I keep emphasizing on upskilling because I've done a lot and I still do a lot to upskill myself. Keep upskilling yourself. Get technical skills to add to how well you write. Carve a niche. Go into there are so many sectors of writing. You can be a copywriter. You can be a content creator. You can even be a storyteller. It's a job. People are doing. I've met like a couple of storytellers who just tell stories, and they are doing so well. British Council here, they cannot hold any event in Nigeria without a storyteller present. Why? These people are making really good money. So there's a lot. Don't let anybody tell you that you cannot make an income from storytelling. It's good to have other sources of income. Please, by all means, please do. We need more billionaires. But if you are a storyteller, use it. It's a powerful tool today. Like, people are looking for us. Get technical skills. Network with writers. Don't run away from other writers. If you see collaboration opportunities, jump into it. And please, a place when you get upskilled and you know you're good, place premium on your skills, please. Charge. Don't be a writer who cannot charge for their services. I did that a lot before I stopped. And I discovered that even when I stopped and I'm charging what I should charge, people are still coming because you're good at what you do. So yeah, basically, storytelling is a very, very important tool in today's world, especially with online leverage. Everything is going, tech is going into tech. Everything is upscaling into the fourth industrial revolution. Maybe that's how they say it. So everybody needs people online to tell stories. You can key into that market, get technical skills for any form of writing you're interested in, and put yourself out there. Collaborate with other writers. You can get a lot of opportunities from your colleagues. There are a lot of things that come to our tables that we don't want to do or we cannot do, and we have to look for other people to work with. So please don't run away from other writers. Network, collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marlene. Thank you so much for everything you shared. I think one thing that really stood out was the emphasis on how important it is to collaborate and to also announce your writing. And I think that's one thing that I am learning. I've had to learn from experience and not from someone else's experience, right? And I believe this is something we all should note, that in a way, no one would come to your house and knock on your gate and ask, oh, are you a writer? I need the services of a writer. They need to see that you write. They need to see your works out there. They need to see you talk about what you do, what services you offer as a writer, how you can use writing and storytelling to help them sell their brand, sell their products, sell their services. So I think that's something that is very important. I have a friend who says that if you're a writer and we can't find any evidence of your writing on your social media, then perhaps you should create new accounts. So I think that's very important. Thank you so much, Marlene. I believe if you have any questions, there's a session for questions. So those will be fielded. All right, so we'll be moving on now. Before we move to our second session, we would be having a very quick exhibition. Now, as a brand, as Itanile, we've been privileged to enjoy the funding from a very gracious sponsor by the name Collins Eliseo brand. They've been a sponsor and partner for a couple of years, and this evening they will be sharing briefly with us a bit about their brand. So I would like us to welcome a representative from Collins Eliseo brand, that's in person of Delight Asaf. Delight, are you with us? Delight, can you hear me?
Delight, you have to unmute yourself. Delight.
Hello, Delight. We can't hear you. Are you with us?
Can you hear me now? I can hear you.
Yes, I can.
Right. So good evening, everyone. I am actually here on behalf of Collins Show. I'm representing him because he is actually very busy, so he can't be here now. So I'm just going to talk about our services and what we offer. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we notice that everybody knows that we live in a world where that's full of, how do I put it, we live in a world that's full of so much differences, and the only way to actually get to know more about things you don't know about is by actually going for adventures, traveling, is broadening your horizons. Yes, a good way to do this is by actually studying abroad. So that is why Christianity education is actually here. So we notice that a lot of students want to further their education abroad. A lot of them want to broaden their horizons, to learn different cultures and different stuff, but they don't know how to go about it. So that's why Christianity education is here. So Christianity education is an educational consult that specializes in helping international students pursue their career choices, their goals, their academic, academic dreams in different countries of the world that they want to go to. So over the years, we've helped more than 100 students actualize their dreams, studying in different colleges and universities across the US, Canada, and the United States, even Ukraine. So what we do is that we partner with different organizations, different educational institutions, and and link these students to various scholarship educations. Okay, sorry, can you hear me clearly? I don't know what's going on.
Yes, I can.
We can hear you,
Can you hear me
Delight.
clearly?
Just go on, Delight.
Yes, we can.
Anyone who's
Go on.
struggling, please make sure that your connection is good as well. We can hear Delight. All right, go on, Delight. You're muted again, Delight. Hello, we can't hear you.
So sorry, can you hear me now? So what we do is we partner with different business, different organizations, and different educational institutions to link these students with opportunities, so opportunities, scholarship opportunities. So that's basically what we do. And the best part of Christianity education is that we don't just help these our clients, our students, and leave them after some time. So we actually continue supporting them and helping them throughout the educational academic journey overseas, and even when they're done with it. So that's our work. So a great way to reach to if you want to check more about Christianity education, because I know the time is too short to actually see everything. So you can actually visit our website on christianeducation.com, crystallinkseducation.com. I'll send a message in the chat box. So I'll type it out in the chat box. And also, the last thing I'm going to talk about now is Colin Celestro and his work. So over time, if you've been following us on Instagram or any social media at all, you see we're running a series on how to make money online, because we notice that many youths have different skills, talents, abilities that they don't know how to monetize this. So we run every day on Instagram. We run series on how to make money online, and we also have this coaching and mentoring service. So if you want somebody to put you like hand in hand to walk you through the processes on how to monetize that's your skill or ability, so you can actually send a message to Consilisro on Instagram, or you can send it to his email address, consilisro@gmail.com. So this is where I'm going to be stopping. So I hope you got everything. So I'm going to send the link to Christian's education website. So if you're an aspiring student and you want to study abroad or in any country of your choice, and you have the resources or you want opportunities, scholarship opportunities, you can also send us a message, or you can visit our website and see how you can contact us. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Delight. That was a very great and very quick exhibition. I hope we all keep to time like that for the remaining part of the sessions. So thank you, Marlene, for your speech. Michael, you are still supposed to facilitate until 5 o'clock, but I mean 5:15, but
I'm right here. I'm right here, damn it.
Because the waiting period is always making me feel like we are not utilizing most of our time. So please try as much as possible to, jump on board quickly. All right, over to you.
All right, thank you, Dami. So next, thank you so much, Delight, for the exhibition. Next, we'll be having Jeff come up with his session. Very quickly, I would introduce Jeff. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can.
All right. Jeff Ugochukwu was born in a small polyglot town in Bauchi, Nigeria. Growing up, he was fascinated with the mechanisms of difference and how they shape our perceptions and guide us through space, which first led him to writing and continues to inform his storytelling. He is also interested in helping writers close the gap between what's on the page and their imagination. Jeff mostly writes early in the morning, then sits with other people's writings through the day, either as a freelance or in-house editor at Itanile Mag. Let's make welcome Jeff Ugochukwu for his session. Jeff, over to you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. It's an honor to get to speak to others who are, on the same journey as I am. So because of time constraints, I'm just going to go straight to the point, read out like the points we are going to touch on, and then go over them one after the other. So the topic I'm going to be dealing with is decision making in storytelling. How you make decisions, fiction to be precise. So the areas we are going to be, sorry, I have my notes here, so I'm going to be referring to it a lot. So one, developing your ideas. Two, what theme do you want to explore? Three, what tone do you want to convey? And then four, how do you choose a point of view? And then lastly, what do you need to know how to do well to achieve your desired results? So let's start with developing your ideas. I'm going to use a lot of hypotheticals that's to make my points. So I hope I can come up with appropriate ones as I go. So ideas, fiction, you really cannot write fiction unless you have an idea. And as a fiction writer, ideas, they come from anywhere, right? Anything at all. It could be like you're walking down the road and then someone says something or does something, or your friend tells you a story. Ideas can come from everywhere. But where most people have issues is, developing those ideas into plots. How do you develop, okay, someone said something to you in the morning, maybe at your workplace, and then it occurs to you that, okay, I could explore something like this in my story as in fiction. So, but then how do you develop that idea into a plot, right? So for me, since I was told we should incorporate a lot of our personal experiences. So for me, right, first of all, let's say your friend tells you a story, right? Maybe your friend tells you, okay, in their streets, there was a mad woman, right? There was a mad woman who they suddenly woke up one morning and then found her pregnant, right? And let's say after 9 months, the pregnancy is gone and the baby is gone as well. And so you're wondering, okay, I want to use this in fiction. What do I do, right? Apparently, you can't just tell that story as simple as I've told it right now, right? So you're wondering, okay, how do I develop this idea? So there's this thing I do, the what if question, and then why, right? you have to start, asking questions, right? Questions that brought you into answering, okay, the mad woman, how did she come to get pregnant? You have to figure that out. How did she come to get pregnant? And then you have to go deeper. You have to keep asking the what if question. How, okay, let's say, okay, you figure out that maybe a couple somewhere in the neighborhood, maybe the husband slept with a mad woman, right? And then got her pregnant. And then you have to keep going again. Ask yourself, what condition pushes a couple, right? A couple, that's a man and his wife. They are into it, like they are in the know. The both of them know that, okay, the husband is going to sleep with the mad woman. So you have to ask yourself, what sort of condition pushes a couple into exploring sleeping with a mad woman as an option, right? What pushes them? And then from there, you start getting to know your characters. And of course, as you think of these things, the Bible and paper is your friend. Of course, as you think during your day, whether you are working, of course, you are ruminating, you're asking these questions, the answers are coming, and you have to be jotting them down. But you have to keep asking this question until, right, you start getting to know your characters. You even start to get scenes. Okay, how did this happen? What? Because storytelling is it's all about something happens that leads to something else. And then that something else happens that leads to something else. So that's how you tell a story. There has to be a link. How you move, your reader needs to know how you moved from one place to the other, to the next place. So as you dig deeper, asking these questions, you begin to get scenes, right? A character, even you begin to imagine snatches of conversations and things that are happening within the story. What happens that leads to a place like this? What happens that leads to the next spot? And that's how you just keep going. Of course, it doesn't always work. As we all know, not every idea works out. Sometimes you ask, and the plot just doesn't come, right? Something else, and then one day maybe come back to it, right? So, so there's that. So the next thing is what theme do you want to explore? Okay, theme is like your central idea. The central, okay, now you have a plot, right? Like you know how what happens in the story, you know the story you want to tell. But then you need to figure out the theme. The theme is important because the theme is what guides you in storytelling. It's how you know when you are deviating, when a particular scene is not working. Like it's not contributing to the overall theme of your story, right? The theme is your central idea. And to find that central idea, you have to reduce your plot into a single sentence. Maybe find a way to reduce your plot into a single sentence. And that single sentence should say something about the human condition. Right? That's what storytelling is all about. Right? That single sentence, your central theme has to say something about the human condition. Let's say, most of us must have heard honesty is the best policy. Right? That's a sentence that's talking about the human condition. So, and to find your theme, right? Let's say, okay, this story I just told, right? Let's say after sleeping with the mad woman and everything the couple did, right? And then their plan ends up failing, right? It fails, and maybe they are arrested, right? Maybe they are arrested and prosecuted, right? Or maybe something just happens. I just wish there was a kind of reading like there was a story for me to refer to, right? So the central theme is you have to look for that single thread. What is the story trying to say? Right? What is your story trying to say? Is it trying to say, okay, you know, those who die by the sword, sorry, those who live by the sword will die by the sword, right? So it's about like looking for that single sentence, that single sentence that says something about maybe the main character. You get, how does the story of the main character, what does it say about the human condition, right? So that's how you find your team. And your team, let me say that again, your team needs to say something about the human condition. Storytelling is not, you're looking to you want your reader to walk away with something. And why it's important for you to find your team even before you dive into your story is that in the end, it's your team that tells you, okay, whether you've achieved what you set out to do. In the end, it's your team that's going to help you cut things out. Obviously, in your first draft, a lot of things won't work. Scenes, sentences. So your team is there to guide you when you're writing and then in the end. So let's move on to the next. The next, number 3, is what tone do you want to convey? Okay, tone is like, okay, imagine that right now I'm speaking to everyone and everyone is hearing my voice, right? So, and this is my voice. My voice doesn't change. But then anytime when I want to address people, maybe in a professional setting or in the market, obviously I'll need to, you know, alter my tone to fit who I'm speaking with. Right? So it's the same thing for storytelling. Your tone is like, okay, your tone is what guides, it's the sound, right? The feeling the reader gets after reading your story. It's how you convey feeling. Right? Let's say you're writing a sad story. Right? When you're writing a sad story, you don't particularly need to tell that story. Your tone doesn't have to be sad, right? You just need to find a tone. Is a tone that works. Sorry, excuse me, I keep getting notifications from. Okay, so tone.
Hi, Jeff,
Okay,
are you with us?
Yes. Sorry, I was looking for something. So so as I was saying, your tone works hand in hand with your voice. Your tone is about how you use words, how you combine your words, how you develop your sentences and the images you draw and everything. So well, your tone, imagine maybe you're speaking to your superior, right? And maybe you're using this kind of harsh tone to someone who is your superior, maybe in the workplace, right? So that's what happens when you get it wrong. That's when you tell a great story, because you can tell a great story and then get your tone wrong, right? So what happens when you get your tone wrong in storytelling is that the reader walks away without feeling what you want them to feel. And so how do you find your tone? So to find your tone, you have to ask yourself, for me, what I do is I ask myself, okay, what attitude do I want to bring to this story? What's the attitude? Do I want to be casual, right? Do I want the reader to be sad? Do I want to be sarcastic? Do I want the reader to walk away feeling happy? So that's how you start to decipher, okay, what tone do I want to use for this particular story? I just ask myself, what's the attitude? Right? Even before, okay, what do I want the reader to take away from this story? How do I want them to feel? And tone can differ within the same story. You don't have to use one tone for the entire story, right? When you read,
Cotton, I'm sorry to cut in. You have about 7 minutes more. Hope that's fine.
You said?
You have about 7 minutes more to round up your session. I'm sorry to cut in.
No problem. All right. Thank you, Mike. So
Thank you very much.
the next thing on the list is, how do you choose your point of view? Okay. For your point of view, what I do is ask myself, okay, I already know my characters, right? So what I ask myself is that, which of these characters is going to tell the story better? Which of them, from which of them is going to tell this story in a very impactful and meaningful way? When it comes to point of view, for me, it's more about distance. It's more about distance. When you want a character who is reflective, who does a lot of thinking, a lot of self-reflection, maybe you'd better settle for the first person point of view. The first person point of view, that's I, in case that's using of I in the story, or we, that's the first person plural. So here, there's no distance between the narrator and the reader. It creates this closeness, right? The reader is feeling what the narrator is feeling in the moment. That's when they are reading that story. So for me, it's more about distance, right? One, distance. Two, from which of the character's eyes do I need to tell the story? Which of them will tell a more impactful story? And of course, there's the third person point of view, which is which most writers use in novels. So the third person really lets you touch on. It gives you this panoramic view, right? It gives you distance. Basically, that's just what it does. It gives you this distance to be able to see what everybody is doing. You can get into each character's head, tell your reader what the character is feeling, or what they are thinking, what they want to do. So when it comes to point of view, two things. One, the distance. You have to decide what kind of distance do you want. That's between the reader and the person who is narrating your story. And then is the reader going, is the narrator going to do a lot of navel gazing? Like, are they going to self-reflect a lot? And finally, we have, what do you need to know to know how to do well to achieve the desired results? So all through, you already know what the kind of story you want to tell. You know the feeling you want the reader to walk away with. And so the next thing you need to, because every story will demand something different. That's the thing I've discovered with fiction. Every story, even if you've written fiction 10,000 times, 20,000 times, it doesn't matter. Whenever you sit down to write a story, that story is going to demand something from you. So when you let's say if you want to tell a story, let's say in the second person plural, so what you want to do, what you need to do is to look for others who have written the same kind of story. It's as simple as that. There's no other magic, there's no research, one. And secondly, look for stories that have been written, authors who have done the same thing you want to do with that particular story. And like the previous speaker said, Marlene, don't copy you. What you do is study what the person has done. Like, how did they move from one place to the other? How did they build their characters? How do they manage to maintain a consistent narrative, right? So you need to not just read the person, you need to study them, not just read them for pleasure. Just whenever you want to write something and you feel like, okay, I don't have the skills to write these things, thank God for the internet now. You don't need to go to the library or anywhere. Just go online, look for stories, ask anybody do you know any author who has written a story that's like this? Just read them, study them. Okay, I think that'll be all. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much, Jeff. Mike, I know that I am supposed to wait for you to introduce me, but we are running out of time. So I'm going to just quickly introduce myself so that we can go on quickly to the next session. All right, can we all hear me properly?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for.
Yes, I can hear you.
Possibly. Thank you, guys. Thanks for the response. So thank you, Jeff, for the presentation. Thank you for all the insights you've shared. I really had my jotting going wild through the session from Marlene and Jeff. Quickly, we're going to have this session where we quickly do a small exercise. So for all of us that are participating, we want to do an exercise where we do a short pitch of stories based on what you've just listened to. We want you to quickly exercise your minds, understanding how to. For me, one of the core things I've picked through the session so far is how to, connect with ideas quickly, find themes, find central themes, find stories that are impactful, and be able to convey them quickly. And of course, there's no hurry, but most of the time, one of the things that separates writers from themselves is the ability to easily absorb information and work on them. Because when you become professional, you'll not be able to always rely on muse to put out content. You'll not be able to rely on muse always to write a story for publishing. Sometimes some prizes will announce their stuff 1 month to the deadline. Sometimes prizes will announce their stuff because maybe they didn't get things in place quickly, but they need to achieve some of their objectives. And you as a writer, you would have to quickly interpret what the theme is. If you are the type that writes as a business person, you would have to interpret briefs from clients quickly. And this ability is something I want you to develop before within this workshop and even after the workshop. So what we'll be doing now is that we are all on the Telegram group. Quickly, you're going to write your pitch of a story. Pitches don't have to be more than 50 to 100 words. They're very short things. Jeff made a statement which I think would convey this idea properly. He says, reduce your plot to a single sentence that describes the human condition. I like that statement. That's your pitch. The pitch of your story should be so central and so close to the human condition you're addressing that it helps the reader to quickly know what they expect from your story or what they should anticipate to some extent. It shouldn't be always fully revealing, but to some extent, the reader should be drawn in. It's like your bait, it's the hook. So give us a hook of your story. Before, I wanted us to exchange the stories between ourselves, but what we would rather do is everyone can write this speech, drop it in the Telegram group, and then when we do the pitch exchange period, before the end of the session, we're going to have a period that's called pitch exchange period. Instead of the exchange, we will now allow the facilitators to respond to some of the pitches, to look at the ones that caught their attention, the ones that they are excited about, the ones that they think really convey an emotion. And very much importantly, before I round off this talk, I'm going to give us a few minutes to do that pitch, maybe 5-10 minutes. I don't think it's a long session. So please, in the next 5-10 minutes, start doing it already. If you have your phones with you, you don't need to write it on paper. Get on your phone now. Think of a story idea, whether it's for a business or for a contest. Keep it in mind that you have an audience you want to create for, and write your pitch in 50 to 100 words. I was going to say that conveying emotions is very important. Make sure that your pitch conveys an emotion. So please, guys, drop that pitch in the Telegram group right now. I'm going to give us like 5-10 minutes to do that. Then we'll continue to the next session. So please drop this in the Telegram group. I'm going to just pause for a bit so that we can do that. If you've done your pitch, you can just drop it in a comment here also that you've dropped it in the group. If you've done your pitch, drop it in the comments. Let's see how, and also importantly, I will be offering to give some prizes to the best pitches. We're supposed to have an exhibitor here today. Also, we're supposed to hire a writer from here. He's not yet joined, but if he joins eventually, we will be able to also know who exactly we are going for and who we might contact in future for that role. So please, guys, take this as serious as you can. There are prizes attached also just to motivate you as well. So please drop your pitches in the group. Okay, you have 4 minutes to go. 4 minutes to go. You have 4 minutes to go. If you're not sure what to do, also you can ask questions in the chat. If you're not sure what is expected, I can explain any question or respond to any question you have. Okay, Joy, if you're on the session, I see a question on the Telegram group. We are doing a pitch session. So you're supposed to pitch in 50 to 100 words, pitch your story. The last speaker talked about how you can use you can create a sentence that represents or that describes a human condition that your story will be addressing. So it's an opportunity for you to pitch your story and let us see what you have in mind to write. If you've been working on a contest or a job or something that you think you need to pitch an idea for, maybe you need support with that idea, you can also use this as an opportunity to pitch that idea. And we'll look through it in the session where we're supposed to have a pitch exchange. The plan was that we go participant to participant, but now we are only going to allow our facilitators to look at some of your pitches and see what you guys are writing, get an idea of your style, see what you can improve on, maybe give suggestions to you, and then that would help you to also improve your work. So, all right. All right, you have 1 minute to go. 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute to go. Of course, you can still keep dropping the pitches during the session, but now we'd have to move on to the next facilitator. All right, time is up. I'm going to hand over to Michael. Michael, please take over for the next sessions.
Thank you, Dami. I believe by now we are concluding with our speeches, and we'll be moving on to the third training session. And for this session, we'll be having May Ebute facilitate. May, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone.
All right. Good evening, May.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, we can. In 1 minute, I'll just introduce May to everyone. All right. May Ebute describes herself as a writer who loves giving words to her thoughts. She uses the art of storytelling as a medium for changing society by shedding light on present issues. She's a contributor with the News Chronicles and a columnist with Life's Table magazine. May is a freelance writer and with ghostwriting experiences for clients and blogs. As an educator, she engages storytelling to inspire female students. She also runs a reading and writing club in her place of work, where she teaches students who are passionate about writing to write. Her books, The Lost Doll and The Night God Died, await publication. Right now, let's welcome May Ebute for our session.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Can
Yes,
you
we
hear
can.
me?
I hear you.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
I
Welcome
can
to
hear
this
you.
edition of the Chapter 20 workshop for this quarter. Before I go into the business of the day, I want to say a very big thank you to Dami, Michael, and the rest of the team for having me on this particular edition of the program. It is, of the workshop rather, it is an opportunity that I do not take for granted. The topic I'm supposed to take on is storytelling and editing. So I'm just going to go straight into the business of the day. Stories have existed for as long as people have existed on the planet Earth. Every day of our lives, we are surrounded by stories and the people who tell them. For example, when we watch the news, we are at least watching stories. When we watch movies, kind of songs we listen to, daily conversations about the events in our lives are also targeted around stories. I am sure that probably before you joined this workshop, you may have told a story or two, or you may have heard a story from one or two persons. So what then is storytelling? If it is virtually like a facet of our everyday lives, then what is storytelling? Basically, or simply put, storytelling is the act of presenting stories either in oral or written form. Storytelling is the act of presenting stories either in oral or written form. And because one of the focus of this workshop is to get us to become better writers, I am going to dwell on the written form of storytelling. Okay, I'm going to focus on that aspect of storytelling. But before that, why is it important to tell stories? Why do you want to tell stories? Why do you think people need to hear your stories or read your stories? For one, stories add to our knowledge. They open our minds to new information and the existence of a larger world different from the world that we exist in. Like I always tell my students, I've never been outside the shores of this country, but if I go to a country like the US or the UK, for instance, I'm not going to be surprised at some of the events that may occur around me. That is because I've already been exposed to them through reading stories, okay? Stories expose the reader to new information and endless possibilities through reading, and they also expose the writer to new information through research, because of course you cannot write if you do not research about that topic you're writing about. And secondly, stories teach empathy. Through stories, the reader sees into the heads of the characters. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I read stories, I am able to feel the emotions of the character. If the character is angry, I can feel it. If the character is happy, I can also feel it. Stories help us to see into the heads of the characters, and through the characters, the reader can also see and feel the author's emotions and the ideas in their minds. Stories teach readers empathy. They teach people how to empathize with other people. Then thirdly rather, stories also help us to hope for the better. Okay, a lot of us have become very hopeful about life as a result of stories. We tend to make sometimes we tend to make mockery of motivational speakers, but the truth is motivational speakers through storytelling have helped us to aspire to become better people. There are certain stories that remind us of persons who have gone through whatever it is we're going through and how they were able to overcome. So sometimes when you're going through a particular thing and then you remember the stories about that person that someone somewhere probably shared and you wrote and you read about it, you are gingered to aspire for more. You are gingered to be more hopeful, because if Mr. A could go through the same thing and overcome, what about me? That means I can do the same thing, right? Stories help us stories help us to hope for a better future and a better tomorrow. Then the last but not the least, stories are like a two-edged sword. They present the good and the bad aspects of life to people. So the writer writes the story, and you as the reader are expected to do what? Make choices. Stories expose us to choices. But even at that, even though stories give us the liberty to make choices, they also remind us of the consequences of whatever choices it is we make. I know that I have been influenced by some books I've read. A lot of us have also been influenced by books we have read. What was the influence about? Was it positive or was it negative? If it was positive, the rewards are there for you. If the influence you got was of the negative type, the rewards are also there for you. Stories expose us to these things. Okay, then since we now know how important stories are, how then do we write stories? I'm sure that is what a lot of you are waiting for. You're thinking probably she's going to say, just sleep, close your eyes and wake up, and then carry your biro, and voila, you have a very good story that can sell. No, that is not all there is to it. There is no magic wand involved in writing stories. There are processes, and I'm going to list those processes to us, okay? The first process that comes with writing stories is, I think the person that spoke before me mentioned that too briefly. You have to have a draft. You have to write the first draft. This is the most important aspect of writing a story, writing your first draft. I call the first draft the skeletal frame on which the rest of your story develops. It is like digging into the ground, looking for treasures. While you keep digging, you have the idea that, okay, there are treasures underneath the ground, but you do not know what those treasures look like. You do not know the state in which they are. But if you stop digging, you are never going to find out. So what do? You keep digging and digging and digging until you get to that treasure. That is how the first draft is. You know there's something, you have a picture of something on your mind that you want to achieve, but how do you get it if you do not put it on paper? You write the first draft, and then subsequently you keep developing it till you get to the end of that draft. At this point, sometimes some people may likely get discouraged. I get discouraged sometimes too. When you're writing that first draft and it seems like the ideas are not flowing, it just seems like you keep getting stuck at some point. Don't worry, just keep writing. Just keep writing. The more you write, the better it gets. Just write, whether the ideas are coherent, whether they are making sense or not. Just do what? Just write. When you finish that first draft, you can come back later and develop whatever you have written down in that first draft. But no matter how stuck you think you are, don't drop your pen, just keep writing. And then secondly, what do? After you've written your first draft, develop your main character. Your main character is known as the protagonist. Remember for those of us who grew up in the 90s, there was this thing then, I don't know if it's still there now, but there was this scenario we used to call the actor and the boss scenario, where you were always rooting for the actor. We wanted the actor to win, and anytime it seemed like the boss was having an upper hand over the actor, it used to make us feel very bad. The actor in this case is your protagonist. Have you noticed that the kind of stories that we enjoy the most are stories that have a lot of conflict around the protagonist? Okay, that is the kind of story that people enjoy the most. People just want to see what is going to happen next. Is the protagonist going to die? Is he going to win? People just want to see how it is going to play out. If you don't develop your main character, which is the protagonist, very well, you are not going to get people wanting to see what is going to happen developed. He has to be immersed in the kind of troubling situations that will make your reader want to see how he's going to come out of such situations, the kind of troubles he is. That is what makes stories, some stories exciting. People want to see how the protagonist is going to overcome. And of course, you cannot have a main character, you cannot develop your protagonist fully without having an antagonist alongside. The antagonist in this case is the boss, okay? You cannot have a protagonist without having an antagonist alongside. What does the antagonist do? The work of the antagonist is to expose the reader to the weaknesses and the strength of your protagonist. It is the attitude, it is what the antagonist does that brings out that superpower ability that your protagonist has. It is what your antagonist does that brings out the ability to become the one that people are looking forward to when reading your stories. So you have to develop your protagonist in such a way that will make readers glued to the pages of your story. Then in line with that, you also have to do what? Create drama and suspense. Always make the reader eager to know what will happen. You know, this kind of, you're reading a book. When I was much younger, anytime I was reading a book that was very, very exciting, I used to feel like sometimes I'll be tempted to want to go to the last page of the book to find out what happened to the protagonist. Did he die? Did he finally get to marry the girl? Did her parents finally accept? You know, all those kind of questions. Your readers will keep asking questions. What happened? Would the bad person get away? How did this person get out of this situation? Create drama and suspense. Make people want to anticipate the next page. Make your next page as unpredictable as possible to keep your reader glued and doing what? Wanting more. Are we following? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, go on.
Okay. All right, then the fourth thing is don't tell it, show it. Don't tell it, show it. When you are writing, learn how not to tell your reader, show your reader the actions of your character instead. A story that shows makes a more emotional connection with your reader than a story that just tells. It makes a reader have a sense of the situation just as you did while you were writing. One book that has made an indelible impression on me till I'm sure the day I'm going to die, that book is always in my head because that particular scene, anytime I remember it, I remember how I felt, the emotions I felt when I was reading it. It's John Grisham's The Chambers, where he described how the man was led from his cell, from his prison cell to the execution room. The way he described it, he didn't just mention that the man just stood up and walked and then he went to the execution room and electricity was passed through his body and he was killed. No, the way he mentioned it, the way he described it, he talked about it, you could actually see the despair. You could actually see the kind of, the way this man was feeling. He was going to die for a crime he did not commit. The kind of, the way John Grisham talked about it, the final minutes between walking from his cell to the execution room. I was actually in public, but man, I could just picture the man walking with all the guards around him, his children waiting for him on the other side of the glass, just waiting for their father to come and die for a crime he did not commit. And God, I started crying. People were just looking at me, what's wrong with this girl? They didn't know the emotions I was feeling, but I was able to feel that way because of how John Grisham was able to describe it. Are you following? He showed it in his words. He didn't just tell me that the man got up, went to the execution room and was killed. He showed it in the kind of words that he used. Okay, let's look at these two examples. Now I'm going to read out two examples, the same scenario, and then you're going to choose for yourself which one do you think your readers will connect it with more. Example number one. Don't talk to him like that. Mary glared at him. Sorry, don't talk to me like that. Mary glared at him, eyes as red as the fire from a dragon's breath. Don't talk to me like that. Mary glared at him, eyes as red as a fire from a dragon's breath. Example number one. Then number two, don't talk to me like that, Mary said angrily. Don't talk to me like that, Mary said angrily. These are two different examples, the same scenario involving the same character, Mary. But which one do you think people would connect with more? I think the first one, the first example, because of the use of words that did not directly say Mary was angry, but just showed us in the way the words were used that, yes, Mary was actually angry. The glare, the red eyes, and then the fire from the dragon's breath. These are words, adjectives that we are used to describe the kind of anger, to show the kind of anger that Mary felt. You just have to, you can imagine the look in Mary's eyes when you read through those words. But someone just tells you, don't talk to me like that, Mary said angrily. You've not engaged your reader. Your reader just reads that and passes. But if you put in a lot of adjectives, like in the first example, your reader does not just read, your reader also imagines the look in Mary's eyes. So in order to make a very good impression on your readers, try to use show as much as possible instead of just telling. Okay, then also in line with that, remember to make your dialogue as good as possible. Remember to make your dialogue as good as possible. This is storytelling. Make your dialogue as good as possible, as very conversational as possible. People relate more with conversations than with descriptions. If your story is filled with more descriptions than conversations, it doesn't tend to carry your reader along. I've had people compare different writers. I'm not going to mention their names now, but I've had people compare. They'll tell you this person describes too much. I don't like the way he writes. But this other person, he makes use of a lot of conversation. You can actually follow the talk as his characters unfold. Make use of a lot of dialogue. Make sure your dialogue is good. Make more use of conversational terms than just descriptive terms when writing, when telling your stories. Okay, then the sixth one, a lot of people battle with that. Fight writer's block to a standstill. Fight writer's block to a standstill. Sometimes you want to write, but when you pick up your pen, your brain just freezes. You can't write again. Fight it to a standstill. No matter how you feel, no matter how stuck you think you are, just write. Let me give you an example with myself. Once upon a time, I could not write if I was not feeling sad. That meant that if there were 365 days, since there were 365 days in a year, if I didn't feel sad for one day in those 365 days, that meant I could not write at all. The thing was actually like my writing. I could never pick up my pen to write, because if I did, my brain would just do what? Freeze. I could only write if I was feeling sad. And then luckily, or maybe not too luckily, I don't know, but the kind of person I am, I have more times than I'm happy, more than I am sad. So basically, most of the time, I couldn't write. At that time, I couldn't write just because I was a very happy person. I had to deliberately make myself sad to write. One day I had to tell myself, no, babe, if you really want to do this writing thing, you have to do away with this nonsensical writer's block that comes anytime you're happy. Force yourself to write. And I started forcing myself, whether I was happy, whether I was sad, I would just force myself, pick up a pen and write. today, irrespective of how my emotions are, if I really mean to write, I write. Happiness was like my writer's block at that time, but I was able to fight it to a standstill. So I don't know what makes your writer's block come up. For me, it was happiness. I don't know about you. Whatever it is, whatever that brings the writer's block, try and fight it as much as possible. Don't give yourself excuses, because if you really want to write, you have to fight writer's block. And when there's writer's block and you're writing, it doesn't feel like whatever it is you're writing is perfect. It just feels like you're just forcing yourself. Just force yourself, continue. At the end of the day, you're going to be happy you did. The only way to fight writer's block to a standstill is to keep writing. Just continue to write and write and write. Then the last one, don't be afraid to share your story with the world. Okay? Don't be afraid to share your stories with the world. I was going through a comment section not too long ago, I think a few days back, and it was a post by someone, and then a lady went to comment. She said that she writes, but she's afraid to post her writings on social media because she does not know how people are going to take the writing. She's afraid of negative feedback. And in my mind, I was like, what? You want to grow and you're afraid of negative feedback? Why? If you don't show your writing to the world, if people don't read your work, then how will they know you're a good writer, or how will they know you're a bad writer before they even encourage you and show you the way to go? I know I knew I could write, but one of the things that helped me affirm my position as a writer was when I started writing and sharing my thoughts with the world, sharing my thoughts with people on social media and on other platforms. I started getting calls, I started getting messages, you're doing well, you're this, you're that. And then some people would encourage me, tell me to go meet this particular person so I could get better. And some people started presenting opportunities to me. If I was hiding my writing, I wouldn't be here today. If I probably was like that girl on that comment section that said she could write, but she was afraid of how the world would take her writing, I wouldn't be here today. We probably will not even be having this section today. Hello, we probably would not even be having this section today because I wouldn't have met people like Dami and Michael and the rest. So try as much as possible to share your writing with the world. That is the only way in which you can grow. Okay, we've talked about writing. We've talked about the processes of putting down your writing, telling your stories. How do you make your stories ready for publishing without blemishes? This is where editing comes in, okay? Editing is that important step in writing of errors, vocabulary, and repetition. Editing does not help you get rid of
I'm struggling to hear me.
it does not just help you get rid of error better, it helps you polish the part of the that you cannot afford to play with and create an excellent first impression. Error reading, that person may not be impressed to want to read your subsequent works, but if it is free of blemishes, that person may get impressed and would want to read further works from you. Editing also helps you arrange your thoughts coherently. It helps to give a clear and coherent message to your writing. It does not change your content. Editing is not supposed to change your content or your ideas, but it is supposed to improve the flow and logic of your writing. An editor ensures that your ideas are encompassed in a coherent manner. Okay, then editing helps you to get a more polished piece of writing. Remember that it is impossible to produce a work that is 100% error-free. You still need editing, no matter how much of a guru you think you are. There is nobody that gets that first writing perfect. There may be some things that you probably would have missed that someone else would see. So that is where editing comes in. That is where it is important to edit your work. I've read some works that I was like, who advised this person to go and publish? Does the person not know that there's such a thing as editing? I didn't even finish the work. I threw it away. And I'm sure there are some people like that who, because of errors in books and stories, they don't even bother to finish the book. They just abandon it. If you get a good editor, you can actually work on those things and get people to read your work. Okay, so for constraints of time, let me just end here. Writing comes from the heart, editing comes from the head. So after you have written, it is always good to either get someone to edit for you, if you're sure of yourself enough, even though I advise that always get a third party, get someone else to edit your work. Get someone else to look at your work in a more analytical way so they can pick out the errors that you missed. That is the only way that your work will make an indelible impression on your reader. So whatever spirit is telling you that after you finished your writing, just print, just publish, ignore it, always get an editor, because good storytelling and good editing go hand in hand. You cannot do one without the other. Okay, so thank you very much for having me. Like I said earlier, thank you for this session. If there are any questions, I'll be on ground to answer your questions. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dami and Michael, and have a lovely evening, participants. Yeah.
Thank you so much, May. Thank you so much. If we have questions, let's prepare our questions. There will be a session for addressing questions and getting our facilitators to provide clarity to questions we may have. May made a statement that I would like to echo. She said that writing comes from the heart and writing comes from the head. And there is a common statement I see writers talk about when it comes to editing your work, and it's that you should write without fear and edit without mercy. And I think that's one thing that writers can note, that when you're editing, you're not trying to be sentimental, you're not trying to keep your favorite part of the story or the article or the research work. The idea of, and the purpose of editing is to the entire work. So I think that's one point we should really note. Thank you very much, May, once again. If you are still with me, very quickly we'll be having an exhibition, our second exhibition for this evening, from horizontal factoring. Now, horizontal factoring is an investment and a venture capital and a startup investor. So in 5 minutes, the founder of horizontal factoring, that's Daniel Sadiq, would just walk us through what horizontal factory is all about. So can we welcome Daniel Sadiq? Daniel, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I didn't realize I was speaking on mute. Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
You can hear you.
All right, great. Thank you guys for the opportunity. I've been listening to a lot of people. I think when May was speaking on some stuff and good stuff about writer's block, I picked some things from there. And quick background about me, I'm a very good friend of Dami. I'm still a writer. I used to be a copywriter. Did freelancing for a while, did digital marketing, and now I'm a program manager. I currently run a innovation and technology company, and where we actually using technology to build solutions horizontally across borders. And one of the arm of the company, which I actually want to talk about, is Agile Prep Pro. And when I spoke with Dami, and I said I don't really know what I'm actually exhibiting here, because I just wanted to support the program. And then I realized, because I needed to do some copy for my company, because I've been doing some projects. So what I do is invest in African startups, people that actually creating products that are making change, and not just there's a lot of people building stuff out there. So we're actually looking for people to actually create us. I invest in people. I invest in change. I invest in people that actually building change, building solutions, sustainable solutions that are impacting Africa. I have some vested projects in East Africa and in Nigeria as well. And so here, I'm not really exhibiting anything other than I'm actually trying to recruit someone, and I'm not actually going to be staying for so long, but we're looking for a couple of writers for some of our projects that we're working on. We're actually building have an art project where we are actually trying to create an art studio, creating stories for Africans. I think Marlin is here. I've been working with Marlin on that, talking to Marlin about that. So we're looking for writers. We're recruiting creative writers. I'm going to drop my email on the chat for if you want to reach out to me. I'm also looking for, we're looking for social media managers as well. And interns, I'm not saying like, because I know my colleagues that I know that are good enough, they're too expensive for me. But the competition is great, it's amazing. And please reach out, looking for social media managers, looking for copywriters, need someone to work on the copy for the website. And we're working on the website called Agile Prep Pro, working on that. And I also run, Dami said I can talk about this, but I don't know if I should talk about it. But I also run a training program. One of my mission or my vision is to drive about 1,000 people into tech in 5 years. I have successfully been able to move about 25 people to tech, and they're making 6 figures. And I hope to like drive as many people as I can. You can't hear me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Someone said you can't hear me. Am I audible?
You're audible.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you are.
Connection.
Okay, that scared me a little bit. All right, so yeah, so okay, and I can't remember where I stopped. So yeah, so we're actually training some students on getting people into tech, because a lot of people are scared of. I got into tech, so my story is very funny and interesting story. I got into tech in a very weird way. I self-taught myself, and then I've been passing it along. I've been passing it forward. A lot of people don't want to get into tech because they don't know there's so many opportunities in tech. Even with writing, as writers, there are technical writing. You can cover your own niche as a writer, and and do software sales, and do that. There's so many ways writers can come in without actually coding, and there's so many things that we can actually do. These are the things that I do and drive people to becoming financially independent, by giving them those technical skills. So those are the things I'm all about. I'm all about process, people, and collaboration. And thank you guys for having me here. I don't know if there's like room for like 30 seconds of question. I don't know if that's like part of the exhibition or something, but I'm going to drop my email right now. So if anybody wants to reach out, those are the positions we're looking for. I'm dropping my email. You can reach out and send your resume, and you can use you can use this workshop as a subject, so I can know, I can filter. You can use Itanile as underscore, so I can filter it out, because I get a lot of emails here. So I'm dropping my email on the chat. So you can just drop so if you're a writer, if you're a social media person, so if you're sending anything to make things faster for me, just send your resume and like 2 links of your work. Like, then that works for me. So, and yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, Dami.
Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah.
Really nice having you come around. We're going to make opportunity for those who want to maybe ask you questions to just drop questions in the comments, and you can of course just interact with them during the session. But so that we don't take too much time, would also maybe also allow you to respond when we get to the point where we are responding to the pitches in the group. So you can also jump in there around that time if there's any question that stands out. So, but for now, if there are any questions for you, we can add them in the comments. I can see someone already said they're interested in your training. So let's hope you can respond to them in the comments for now. All right, I'm going to hand over to.
Yeah. So can I?
Go on.
Yeah, I wanted to say something real quick. Because I have to drop. Yeah, I have to drop for for my training. So I can come back later. I have the agenda. I can come back to the room later. So thank you so much, Dami,
All right.
for the
Thank you very
opportunity.
much for coming. Thank you very much and for supporting us. Have a wonderful day. All right, Michael, over to you. Michael.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Thank you, Dami. Thank you so much to Daniel also for his exhibition. Right now, we would be moving on to feedbacks on the story pitches. I believe Dami would help and for the pitches we have received in the Telegram. Dami. Dami, are you?
Yeah, I'm here. Is there something? Sorry, I was looking at some of the messages in the group. Okay, what did you ask?
All right. So I was saying now it's we need to address the pitches we've gotten. So.
Oh, okay.
Would you undo that? Yes.
Let me just look at. I skipped the. Okay. So feedback. Thank you guys for your pitches. I've seen some of the pitches. There are a lot of them. A lot of us jumped in with our stories exactly, started off with the paragraphs. I know that different platforms have their own templates for story pitches, but I tried to provide a kind of guide in the group that would help you to have a kind of concept. You don't have to follow it exactly, but it's a kind of guide that will help you also to shape how you tell your stories. So sometimes you may even find yourself experiencing a block because you have not fully conceptualized your story. And pitches are important for that reason, so that if, for example, a platform accepts your pitch, you don't now get stuck saying, I can't finish the story because I don't know where the story was headed. I have stories like that I started. I'm also guilty of it. I started these stories and then ended up just dumping them because I didn't conceptualize the whole story fully before I started. It's a great story, beautiful story. In fact, there's one already in my mind standing out right now. I remember that story so well. It's a beautiful story. But eventually, I just had to leave it. I'm still going to go back to it. But then, since then, I've developed a process for creating my stories before actually writing them out. So, and I recommend that we also try to create such guides for ourselves to read more about how to pitch your story. I would also share a link I saw that could be helpful for us in future. But for now, let's look at some of the pitches. I would want to call Marlene, May, and Jeff. If you've looked through the group, you see that some people have dropped their pitches and some of their stories. If you have any thoughts or suggestion for them, you can just come up now. You can unmute yourself and just chip in. Marlene, are you jumping in? May, are you jumping in? Jeff, anyone? If you are still reading the stories, also.
I'm trying to read the messages.
for me, I like the pitch from Favor. I like the pitch from Favor.
I think May is saying something, but no.
May, are you saying something? Because we can't hear you. Oh, I think we can't hear you. Maybe you can try rejoining. Okay, I like the pitch from May. I mean, from Favor. And I think I'm looking at another one that I like. I like also the pitch from Ephraim. It uses a lot of imagery, even though it's a small, it's not a full pitch. It doesn't really explain like I've detailed in the guide. It doesn't detail the whole idea, but I like how it uses imagery to pitch or draw you into his story. You can already feel all the emotions or some of the emotions from reading that short paragraph. I would really suggest that you build this story. It looks like a good start. Then Favor, it sounds a bit funny, and maybe you want to look into writing satire. I really like how it started. There was a lot of ATM, so I think sometimes repeating words in stories sometimes may distract someone if they keep seeing that same word over and over again. So, but then like using the pitch guide, that should, Favor is not even, Favor is just joining us. But I think that the comment is beneficial for everyone. Make sure that when you are pitching your stories, you don't lose your confidence in pitching your story. Confidence matters a lot in how your story is accepted or how it is received. So be confident about your word usage, the emotions you bring into the story, your entry. I always say this to the team I have that work with me on my freelance projects, that your entry into a story is super important. You need to catch the attention of your reader right from the first line, the headline, whatever it is. Your headlines are important, even for copywriters. If your headline is not striking enough to keep the reader, then you are most likely going to lose even the pitch. So there's something we do in my team when we have freelance jobs. When a brand comes to us and says, we want you to write a story for us that captures our a message to our audience, maybe in South Korea, I've done recently messages or brand messages that are in different countries, South Korea, UK, London, UK, US, China, and so on. And the thing that stands out for all of them is that your entry into the story must be so relevant to the audience they are targeting that they themselves know that, yes, my audience is going to be interested in this. So you are thinking for your client, or you are thinking for the magazine you are writing for, that what will their audience want to see from them? So that is very important. So that's why you also need to read from those platforms or similar platforms. So I'll let other facilitators respond now. Marlene, are you with us? Jeff, are you with us? Sean Larry Williams, you can also jump in before your session.
Yes, I'm here. I'm just trying to read carefully through the pitches so that we don't dismiss anyone without considering it very well.
Well, we don't have much.
But for Favor, I like Favor's. You were saying something about Favor's repeated use of words. Sometimes there are places it could work. So I like his language, although it's going to require serious developing. But I like the way he uses language, right? Okay, there's Chinyaka also.
Marlene, are you with us?
And then
Are you with
there's
us?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I had to rush off for a bit. I missed the drafts and I'm not on Telegram to catch
I'm
up.
here
So
now.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Well, Sheon, you can also jump in if you've joined the Telegram group, or if you see any of
Yes,
the ones that stand out before your session, you can still give comments. Then we'll move on to the session later.
no problem. Thank you.
All right. All right. All right, Jeff, you can continue if you're still on that.
yes. I like Folakemi Beacon. I like there's tension in her pitch, and I think that's what your pitch is actually supposed to do. Because with a pitch, you don't have all the time in the world, so you have to convince me why you have to convince whoever is reading that pitch, why you should be, whether you're trying to convince a client, whoever it is, your pitch will have to because it doesn't require a lot of words, so you have to use tension. Tension is not just for fiction. You have to, like, there has to be something, something that disagrees with something else. You get two things that are kind of, clashing. Right? There's a bit of tension in your pitch, and I think Folakemi did well with her pitch. I'm still looking through others. When I find another one, I will see something.
All right. Let me hand over again to Michael. We can leave comments, further comments in the chats in Telegram or on this space for anyone to see. So, but I'm going to hand over to Mike for session 4, which is our final session. After that, we'll have a break and then we'll have questions, which I'll be moderating. All right.
Thank you, Dami. Very quickly, we'll just have the 4th session. I believe so far we've learned quite a lot on storytelling and on editing. And our 4th session would pause also on writing, but on a specific genre of writing, is poetry. And I think poetry is one aspect of writing that still needs to be amplified, right? Because there's this idea people have about poems that it's just this childish stuff. And I see what is happening globally in terms of poetry. I'm usually amazed at what people are doing with poems and with poetry. And so I session is also very crucial for us as writers. And so this will be facilitated by Sean Larry Williams. I would run through bio now. Sean Larry Williams. I hope all hear me.
I can hear you. I lost you for a second. I'm sorry, but I can hear you perfectly now.
All right. So I'll be introducing Sean Larry Williams. Sean Larry Williams was born in Lagos on 28 April 1987. He's an intellectual property lawyer, a poet, and a flutist. His first anthology, Gary for Breakfast, was longlisted for the 27 LLNG Nigeria Prize for Literature. He's a regular contributor to literary magazine thebestofafrica.org, and he has been at Spirit Literary Society since 2018. He's married and currently resides with his family in Antwerp, Belgium. Let's make welcome Sean Larry Williams for his session.
Thank you very much.
Over to you, Sean.
Thank you very much, Michael. I really appreciate it. I want to start by thanking Marlene and Jeff and May for their presentations. They were very enlightening. I was supposed to be here just as one of the contributors, but I found that I was a student too, and I was very happy. I took so many notes. I've written about 3 pages of notes already, and I'm very happy about the things I've learned. So I'll also be happy to share my own experiences concerning story writing. And first, I'd like to begin by saying poetry isn't a separate genre per se in 2021. It's all part of the mix. If you listen to Marlene and Jeff and May, I heard poetry everywhere there. So, but before I begin, I just need to comment on this. That, for example, if you noticed when I think it was May who was talking about somebody's anger, that was where the lady's eyes were as red as the fire from a dragon's breath. You see, that just goes to show that, hey, that's poetry. That's the use of simile. So it's not that poetry is a separate thing. It's also part of, it's one whole. It's all connected. So, and who remembers, is there any particular line? Damn, if you don't mind interjecting, do you remember the one popular line in Buhari's inauguration speech? One of the most popular lines from that speech.
I'm not really sure. I even listen to Buhari's speeches, but I'll think about
okay.
it.
I don't know if there's anybody else who might remember. It's very important that I get from somebody else.
I'm not from.
I don't want to repeat it. It's a very memorable thing he said in his speech.
I am for everybody and
Exactly.
for nobody.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know, see, all these are devices used in poetry. So when people say, oh, poetry is old school, or it's just one genre that is no longer, you know, the in thing, I just smile, saying to myself that they don't seem to understand that poetry is everywhere. All the copywriting, all the storytelling, modern poets know that you cannot jump into poetry with the intention. If you want to be honest with yourself, if you want to become a billionaire, you cannot tell yourself that I'm going to become a billionaire by writing poetry, if you want to be realistic. And the reason for that is you look at all the examples of all the billionaires that have ever existed throughout history. Has any single one of them come from poetry? You say no. But if you look at the writer of Harry Potter and they tell you that, hey, this woman is a billionaire, then you can tell yourself, okay, she has some poems in her book and she used poetry in writing. So you can see that you can translate, you can move your poetry skills, use it in other places like copywriting, novel writing, everywhere. There's a quote on this issue, which I would like to share with you. It says, always be a poet, even in prose. It's by Charles Baudelaire. He said, always be a poet, even in prose. Now, look at Buhari too. He has become a poet. I mean, in that speech, I'm not saying he wrote the speech because I know Dami was saying that's not true. You know, some ghostwriters even know who wrote these speeches, you know, but these things go through poets. And you'll be surprised that there's an edit done on written works by copywriters that are edited by poets. They say, okay, let's throw in some rhetoric into this thing. And they bring in similes, metaphors, all sorts of paradox, oxymoron, anything that can help invoke emotion. So that, because one of the words that has been used a lot by Marlene, even Jeff, who was talking more about script writing, and May, it was about emotions. You cannot invoke emotions without using some poetic devices. And so I want to just tell you that don't think that poetry is old school or belongs somewhere else. No, the modern day poets are writing for Netflix. They are writing, they're doing copyrights, they are everywhere. They're everywhere. Okay, so now let me go back to how I had planned to start. I'm hoping that by the end of today, you realize that poetry isn't a genre that belongs to the 19th century. And but the question I must answer first is who poetry helped? Since we're Nigerians, that's just another way of saying why should you care about poetry? And I have to tell a personal story. I was raised by a poet. He's also a scriptwriter and an all-around artist, if you ask me, because he paints, he plays the drum, and he was an actor too. His name is Larry Williams. And so I didn't have much of a choice when it came to choosing whether I'm going to be an artist or not. I grew up with all this, so I already was thrown in, and I learned a lot from the artists who were around me. And I got introduced to poetry merely from watching stage performances and listening to the artists around me deliver poetry. but why should you actually care and listen to this presentation about poetry? My response would be to let you know that I wouldn't consider myself the most successful person just yet, but I'm currently in Munich, Germany. And I'll tell you that a major part of the reason why I'm here is because of what poetry has given to me in my life. I'm not saying that being in Germany or Munich means you've succeeded in life or anything, but I'm saying that from where I'm coming from, I consider it a big progress. You know, I'm one of those who define success by making it very personal. Like, where were you before and where are you now? It's not about comparing with other people, but looking at your own personal life. And I know that poetry has played a huge role. So for me, I'll tell you how this has worked. I began by posting poetry. I mean, first by writing growing up with, being raised by an artist, I told you already. But when social media came in, I started posting my ideas on Facebook. I also was posting a lot of poems. I mean, sharing a lot of poems in my class. I was one of those annoying people who goes in front of the class without sending anybody. I'm just reading my poem to a whole class on Valentine's Day, and people are saying, "Well, what's wrong with this guy?" You know, and it helped me practice to see the reaction. Sometimes I read and nobody claps for me, or people just hiss. And sometimes I read and I see how they respond to it. And then Facebook came and it became even easier. I didn't have to go in front of the class. I just post online. Sometimes you get good reactions. Sometimes you get feedbacks that you don't really appreciate. But they're all always good feedbacks. Even no reaction is good reaction because you know that, okay, you did not invoke properly. That's why I really like that this workshop was hands-on. I mean, a breakout section that says, you know what, write and let us comment. I think that was really great and awesome. That's one of the things missing from other workshops. And that's why this, is going to be one of my favorite workshops ever. But to go back to what I've gained from writing poems, I did not make any money from Facebook, of course, but I got lots of comments from people who were saying, hey, these are really good poems. This is different. I had critics saying, hey, are you allowed to write like this? Why are we not seeing you write with the big grammar? Why is it not difficult to understand your poems? I know somebody said to me that if you do not write, if people don't suffer to read a poem, then it's not yet a poem. And I told myself that, no, I'm not of that philosophy, and it came with a lot of friction. You cannot challenge tradition without hurting someone. That's a very popular saying concerning challenging tradition. And when I came into poetry, I said, I'm not going to write old school poetry. I'm going to write relatable poetry to people who I live with, who I'm here with. And I've made lots of progress. But those comments led me to compile my poems and write a book, to make a collection of poetry. I talked to my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. I said, are these people just teasing me, or do you think these poems are really good? And she said, she honestly thinks they're awesome. She's one of the most honest people, and she'll tell you when she doesn't like something, this is crappy. And trusting her words, I said, okay, let's go for it. And unbelievably, my very, very first collection of poems was nominated for the prize for literature, and I was honored by it. This was a chance to win $100,000 US. And so when we ask the question, who poetry help? It helps me. I did not win that amount of money, but it opened doors that I will go into before I start talking about poems, because I need you to listen to this first, because sometimes if we just jump into how to write poems, you might be wondering, what's in it for me? What's to be gained by this? So the nomination opened doors because I got to meet lots of people. My network expanded. Have you heard the quote before that your network is your net worth? And as soon as I met more people, I was getting invited to other events. I reviewed, I worked with songwriters. I helped with speech writing. I wrote for magazines. I put poems in anthologies. I self-published something else. I applied for grants and fellowships. And, like so many things that I shouldn't want to go into right now. But my point is, there's this other quote that says, sorry, I keep quoting people because I think people have done better work at thinking about these things, and they put it in such better way that I don't even want to try and use my own words. So somebody said, just because something doesn't give you money immediately doesn't mean it's not valuable. You know, I was able to use my nomination to apply for a scholarship to come to Germany for something else, which is a program for intellectual property law, which is my profession. And one of the things that stood me out as a candidate when I was talking to my school, when I got in, I said, why did you choose me? It was a weird question, but I really wanted to know what was in it, because I apply for lots of things and I get rejected. That's totally normal in this business. And they said, oh, you stood out. You know, we saw that you were an established writer. You know, we saw that you had things out there. We Googled you and we saw things out there. And I told myself, oh my goodness, because, you know, I knew that it wasn't because I had the best grades. I wasn't the best student. I wasn't the top 10 students in my class, you know. And so you can see how it translated to some kind of value. This scholarship was able to take care of me for well over a year in Munich, which is one of the most expensive cities in Germany, to pay my rent, to feed me. I didn't have to work one day throughout my studies here. And they told me that you are an established author. So you can see that it's not always about things, but that's not to say I didn't make money from the book itself. I made a few sales, but I didn't like sell. But the money, what I got was way more than the book sales. And if you think about it, the writer of Harry Potter, the writer of so many other great works, the money comes from things like merchandising, character merchandising, and all sorts of other endorsement and deals. It's not always about just the book itself. Or I got invited to several workshops. I got invited by GT Bank, and they gave me, you know, they just paid like one of the biggest sum I've ever gotten before. You know, I don't know if I'm allowed to disclose, but I was just happy. Like, I was like, people recognize this thing, so I've gotten something from this. And I was wondering to myself, I wasn't writing with the aim of making so much money, because I knew that poetry isn't how you plan to feed your family in this day and age. I want to be realistic with you, you know, but I'm letting you know that these things translate to things that translate to things. You can't afford to be short-sighted and say, oh, because I can't make money from poetry, I'm not going to care about literary devices. You know, it gets in useful. Like I gave you the example of somebody who had to review Buhari's speech and throw in those kind of literary devices, and he'll get paid for it. You know, what else? I had benefits of the songwriting was also very inspiring for me, because I didn't think that, you know, but poetry is often just, I mean, songs are often just poetry with rhythm and melody. If you think about it, you know, I'll do this for your case, I'll do that for your case. They're using literary devices. Tenny was using exaggeration there. That, you know, I'll call MC Oluomo, you know, she wasn't really going to do that, you know, and all those kind of things. I think I want to jump now into other comments that have already been made. Things like plot, theme, tone, character. I would advise you to stick to what you've heard from Jeff. Jeff is extremely brilliant. I listened with much joy about, you know, him hitting the nail on the head on what it means to have plot. You'd be surprised that even poetry uses all these devices. They are all siblings. I don't want to repeat these things, but you already heard when they were made to use eyes as red as, and I said, these are elements that we used to. So please, we can refer to those things. I don't want to have to go back on those. But there's another thing I would like to point out, which is the definition of poetry. I know we're not in the classroom, but these are interesting definitions, don't worry. There's a guy called Khalil Gibran, one of the legends in poetry. He says, poetry is a deal of joy and pain and wonder with a dash of the dictionary. I like that definition of poetry because it says, it makes me feel confident as a writer. I have lots of critics. If you check on the internet and maybe Google Sean Larry Williams and Art Guardian newspaper, somebody was defending me because somebody had criticized me heavily on my style of writing, saying this guy doesn't have respect for words. He sounds very ordinary. He uses our daily language. He's not using the most elegant words. And that's not what poetry is. And I decided that I told myself that no, that's not how I consider poetry. And this definition helps me because it tells me that, hey, the most important thing about poetry is invoking emotions. I'm not going to start defining by saying, oh, you have to use these words, and this choice of words is just a tool. So it's about joy, pain, wonder, and only a dash of the dictionary, which means you don't have to use the biggest words. Just, the most important thing is to have somebody read it and say, invoke either laughter, sadness, anything at all. And another person defined it by saying poetry begins as a lump in the throat, a sense of wrong, a homesickness, a love sickness. That's Robert Frost. Robert Frost wrote Road Not Taken. By the way, that's in the public domain. I digress, but I know I'm digressing. That poem is in public domain. The reason I'm pointing that out is because I'm a copyright lawyer, and I'll tell you the implication of when something is public domain and how you can use that for creativity. I remember somebody saying, I think it was Jeff that said, "Don't steal, don't copy. You should be creative," or something like that. I'll talk about that a little later. But to go back to the point I was trying to make. A poem begins with a lump in the throat. So these are the most important things about poems. No, the words you use don't really matter. You can write in Pidgin English, you can write in your language, you can write with the vocabulary that you are blessed with. Nobody has the right to judge you and say, hey, you don't speak good English, you don't speak good enough English, therefore you cannot write. Please be confident. So just know that as long as you have something disturbing you, when this person said lump in the throat, that's Robert Frost. Of course, he didn't mean it literally. He was using a literary device too. Like, is there something that is bothering you? Is there, a sense of wrong? Do you miss home? Are you in love? What is it that you are feeling? So it must begin with that. And it shows when you write. You must be able to translate that feeling on paper so that when somebody reads it, they should feel it too. So if you feel somehow and you write it down and somebody else picks it up and reads it and does not feel how you felt, does not feel that feeling you got that made you write in the first place, then you have not done very well. So the real test is about feeling, not about the choice of words. So even though I'm going to touch a little bit on choice of words and other elements of writing, I want to emphasize that the most important thing is that something must keep you up at night. Not literally, of course, but something must move you. One of the people who posted in the group just now was writing about how somebody finished school. There was celebrations and happiness, and she had seen, she had chosen her courses carefully about how to find something to do, about her future profession in Nigeria. Then she finishes 2 years, she hasn't found something. I was able to relate with that. And I said, this, there's clear, you can see where this person is coming from, and it's so relatable. This is relatable on a very high level because in Nigeria, maybe half of the graduates or more can relate to this. So what happens? Does he go into life of crime? And I found it fascinating because I know that a writer is a person who can make you watch a movie or read a book about somebody who entered crime and you're nodding your head that this is understandable, this is okay. I'm totally with her. She's a prostitute. I agree with her. And many movies have done that before. You find yourself supporting somebody who is a murderer. Like action movies, for example. You find somebody who is a prostitute, you are there with them. Anything, a writer is that powerful. But you must first create a tension. You must justify, like, okay, why should I, please be logical. That's one thing that I find missing in many Nollywood stories. They don't justify some endings, some conclusions that they reach. And that's, so please, I can't help not repeating what Jeff had said because his presentation was so brilliant. And he mentioned something, the human condition. That's what poetry is about too. It's about the human condition. So find that human condition, that thing that is in your heart. That's what's going to be the difference between your final year thesis in your university and poetry. Your final year thesis might just be talking about a phenomenon that is there. It might not need to move you. About the anatomy of a penguin, for example. That's a very random idea, but it's not going to make somebody say, oh, this is, I can't sleep. I really want to go and study the anatomy of a penguin or something. It has to be something about the human condition, And guess what? Creativity is such that you can actually use the anatomy of a penguin in such a way that nobody has even imagined before. So that's on that issue. I would like to talk about the advantage of writing. First and foremost, if you wanted to practice law or engineering, you have to go and study engineering. You have to study law. You have to be called to the bar. But writing is not formal. It's not formalized like that. And that's a huge advantage. You're allowed to just get up. If you can spend a whole month in your bedroom writing a short story or a children's story, whatever it is, nobody's going to judge you based on your academic background or wherever you've gone to. So this is a beautiful profession. Just, this type of events help you hone your skills and direct you and let you know what steps and decisions to take concerning writing. And that's a huge advantage. And I want you guys, all the listeners here, to take advantage of that and say, hey, nobody's going to judge me based on my background. Who brought you up? Where were you, raised? It doesn't matter. Just be able to tell a moving story. And that's all. Not all professions give you that privilege. Some other professions, even though you are a lawyer, you still find people asking you questions like, who do you know, before you can get a huge client? What's your surname and things like that. And it shouldn't be that way. So take advantage of that, please. I also like to comment on writer's block. Have you ever imagined getting a contract with Netflix for a season? This is how I think about it. You have like a season, a series, and they tell you, you're going to have to give us 13 episodes. And then the whole world is waiting for the next season. And you are saying you have writer's block. So these are the things that motivates me when I write. When I'm talking with someone, I'm like, hey, we need you to deliver on something. It's not very easy to be able to tell them that, hey, I have writer's block. But fortunately for very successful writers, like the writer of Game of Thrones, at that level, you can say to yourself, to your audience or to your producers that, hey, I'm not in the mood for writing. And they will say, okay, well, the world will wait. Everybody's going to wait. But until you get to that level, nobody's going to listen to you. You can't tell Netflix, as the upcoming Nigerian artist who is being given an opportunity to deliver 13 episodes of one season and another 13 episodes the following season, and you're saying you have writer's block. They'll tell you that with all the hardship in the country, with all the lack of work and everything, you are saying you have, they'll just say you're not serious. So you have to find a way to deal with it. There's no general rule about it, but this is how I deal with it. I take a walk. Luckily in Germany, they take preservation of forests very seriously. So, I take a walk to the forest, I hear the birds, and magically you have, okay, I have to round off in 3 minutes. Okay. Anyway, I think you get the point about writer's block. I take a walk and I do I read other people's works. That helps a lot. I've made the point about evoking for your poetry, that's the most important thing. So I'm not making any comments on choice of words because I don't think it matters. You can taboo in your poem. It's right. It's okay to taboo in your poem as long as it invokes. Just be confident with it. Avoid cliches sounds like a cliche, but I've dropped it. Let's move on to the next line. You don't have to rhyme. It's an option. Pay attention to form, but it's not necessary. These things are secondary to the first point which I made, which is to invoke. Don't overuse devices. And which means don't start saying, okay, I want to use alliteration. Therefore, everything will be L. It becomes childish or petty. So try to avoid that. And whatever you do, just make sure that you are honest with yourself. If you feel something and you put it down, if it doesn't sell, don't worry. It's fine. It's fine. And there's something else that was said by Michael at the very beginning of the event, that Itanile is about telling stories peculiar to Africans, unique stories that people can relate to, and that the world needs to hear things from our side. My advice, which is not a rule, of course, this is just a guideline. My advice is whatever you do, try and represent your own personal experience, try and represent your own background. It just shows authenticity and honesty. And those things are appreciated by a wider market. Wider market. That's one of the reasons why the biggest, best films, like Godfather, And even the action movie of Black Panther, there was something different, something honest, some unique experiences, and that's very good for your audience. I think I have to end now. So thank you for listening, and all the best.
Thank you so much. Michael.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you so much for this session. Because our time is a bit fast spent, I would just want us to move straight to questions, so we can stay on schedule. So, over to you.
All right, guys. Wow. I'll just say, like Sean, that everything said so far from all the speakers, I like how each of them made reference to what the other speaker said, how, you know, all the lessons are intertwining. I also like, there's a common theme. I don't know if anyone has noticed it. There's something that every speaker keeps pointing to: emotions, evoking emotions. Even when you're writing copy, most people think copy is about writing bland professional English that nobody understands, and it's not emotional, it's just blank, it has, you know, office language. No, in fact, for the past few weeks, the jobs we've been working on, it's mostly about evoking emotions. You look at the problems people have, and you want them to read a story that they can connect with. Like, for example, I recently did a job talking about Korean women, South Korean women, and the skin. It's fashion. I'm not a fashion person, but well, that's the job. And that's another thing. You can't have writer's block when a job is in front of you like that. But going back to the point on writer's block, we had to, on evoking emotions, we had to quickly look at what exactly makes women interested in fashion products like this one, like the skin care products that this particular brand was bringing on board. And for a lot of the work we did, it was all about evoking those emotions. When you look at your skin, how do you feel? Does it make you feel happy? Are you feeling jealous of another person's skin? You know, those keywords like that, you know, the glowing skin, radiant skin, when you even start writing, one of the things you should think of is the words that describe the kind of emotions you want people to have when they look at what you're writing about. So I'll just stop there. And now let's take questions. If you have questions, please drop them in the comments, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question. You can address your question to any of the facilitators, and you can also just address the question to the general floor, or you can also make a comment. So any questions, guys? You can raise your hand so that I can see that you want to speak. There's an icon to click raise your hand on your screen. You should have a place where you can raise your hand before you speak. If you can't find it, then you can also just indicate in the comments or write your question in the comments. Anyone? Anyone? I see a comment in the group. In the comment section. Please, while I'm reading this comment out, I want you guys to ask your questions because we can't stay too long on this section. This is like one of our last few sessions. Okay, I can see one hand already, Joy. But let me quickly read this. Joy, you come up next. This is from Itanile. Tumeleng, thanks for your comment. Okay, the idea of trying to make stories relatable is in itself draining the story of authenticity. Besides, the world already has numerous stories that are devoid of the African experience. In the name of African storytelling, let's tell stories that are true to in the most authentic of ways. Good luck on your writing. Thank you, Tumeleng. I think what you said is also important. When we say African stories, we should also understand that I am an African, my story is an African story, in the process of trying to write African stories, go too far looking for stories that are far-fetched, stories that are not really something that anyone can see in the now. But of course, you can also create imaginary experiences that use the African setting. For example, Wakanda. Wakanda doesn't exist. Some of us argue against the use of the African context for that, but still, it's part of what we'll call the African storytelling experience. So, Joy, your question or comment, you can unmute yourself. Joy, are you there? Joy, are you there? If Joy is not ready for a question, please.
Okay. Good evening, sir, and good evening to instructor here. I actually have a question, and can you hear this?
We can hear.
I'm ready. Right.
Go on. We can hear you. Your network is just a bit poor.
Okay. My question is from the second speaker, if I'm not mistaken, and he said something about developing your ideas. Okay, he talked about setting the tone and the theme, but what he actually pointed out for developing your ideas is quite vague to me. I don't know if you could just maybe say something, go over it again, or just give me an hint that will enable me to better understand. Thank you.
Okay, the second speaker, that's Jeff, right?
Jeff. Yes, Jeff.
Jeff, are you there?
Okay, yes, I'm here. Hello.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
That's a very good question. So thank you for asking. Okay, so ideas, right? Everybody develops their ideas differently, or like develops what they get from their everyday life differently, like into fiction, or develop it into a plot you could write about. So for me, like what I do is to use the what if questions and the why, right? Okay, here's the thing. Stories hardly come to you complete. In fact, it's difficult for you to get a complete story that just comes to you and you have a complete story and then you can just sit down and start writing. It hardly comes like that. Sometimes it's a statement someone makes that piques your interest, right? And then you think, okay, this thing this person said, or this story this person just told, this is something I could explore in fiction, right? So what you start doing is now to start to interrogate, right? You have to dig deeper to make that material true. I don't know if you get, you have to expand it, right? And that's when you start to get to know your characters. And to expand an idea, you have to ask the what if questions. Okay, what if it's like this? Okay, what if this happened this way? Okay, how did this person come to this particular point? Okay, let's say, right, you're just passing by the roadside and then you see something as simple as a mother hugging her son or daughter. So they are so nakedly happy. And then you just, maybe it piques your interest, and then you can just start asking yourself, okay, why are they this happy? What's the backstory, right? Okay, what if the son had, this is, of course, this is just an illustration. What if the son had just maybe won a scholarship abroad? Okay, for how long has he been trying to get that scholarship abroad? And why is that scholarship so important to him? You just have to keep digging deeper, keep asking yourself, how does this person arrive at this point? what happened for them to come to this point, and then what might happen for them to be at so point. And then the more you ask yourself these questions, of course, it's going to take days, months even. This isn't something you just sit down and do once and for all. Sometimes, for me, I go through what I call gestation period, where I just let my mind mull over ideas, a single idea. As I'm doing my day's job or doing things, that idea is in my mind. And, I'm kind of turning it over, asking myself questions. So sometimes it's a month, a few days, but along the way, what is certain is that you are going to make discoveries. Right? You are going to discover things. You are going to find scenes. You are going to even get snatches of conversation. So what you do is, even though you are somewhere where you don't have a pen and paper, immediately you come back home or on your phone, write it down. Anything that comes to you pertaining that idea, write it down and just keep going. Mull over it, turn it over, turn it every which way until at least you find something to work with. And of course, when I say developing your ideas, I don't mean that you don't have to know every single thing before you start writing your story. No, right? So at some point, you have like maybe a skeleton, right? A plot that just, okay, you have is something that, okay, I could move from here to this place to that place, right? So when you have some of these ideas, you don't have to wait for you to know. Of course, some people will tell you, I'm more of a pantser than an outliner. Some writers outline. For me, I don't really use outline, right? So you don't need to know every single thing about every character or every setting or every scene for you to start. And this is one of the joys of writing fiction. You make discoveries along the way. In the process of writing, you say, okay, oh, this character, oh, I could actually make him like this, or no, he could be like this, right? So it gives you this opportunity to make joyful discoveries along the way. So once you have just enough to be able to start, I think what you do is just start. You know your point of view and the rest of the things I talked about in my session. So just get in and start. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Has your question been answered to some extent, Joy?
Is she there?
I think the network may have carried that out again. I think.
Well, the session is being recorded, right?
Yes, the session is being recorded, so we'll also share that with everyone, and I know she'll be able to look over that response. So I'll also just read out a comment in the question from. I'm just trying to share who this is from. This is from Bola Inka. Thanks for the lecture so far. My question is that are there specific authors you could recommend their works so that we can read, study, and as such develop ourselves? Number two, how do we go about script writing? How do we go about script writing? I think anyone can take this question. But the script writing question might be best. I don't know anyone. I think Marlene is script writing, but if you also have answers you can give, please respond. Is Marlene with us?
No, I don't think she is.
Oh, okay. Sheon, are you going to be able? Oh, Michael, did you want to say something?
Is it on script writing?
Yes. Oh no, on the question generally.
Okay, on script writing or just writing.
The question, let me read the question again. Are there specific authors you could recommend their works so that we can read, study, and as such develop ourselves? Number two, how do we go about script writing?
Okay, well, first question, I think that recommendations should come on what kind of thing you want to focus on. When I started writing fiction, I read a lot of American authors. I didn't have access to African writers. And then I was introduced to African writers, and then I stopped reading the bulk of American novels. So I essentially, if I would come and recommend authors to you, they would be preferences and the kind of writing I do, the kind of writing style I love. So I think beyond getting recommendations, it's important to identify your style. What kind of writing do you want to do? Then find writers who engage that kind of writing. I think that would work more than any recommendation, because I'm sure if I asked Dami to recommend 5 authors to me, I may not have heard of any of them, right? And I might also know authors that he has not heard of, possibly. That would be slim anyway, but possibly. And it doesn't mean he doesn't read or they don't read. So there are so many authors in the world, too many good authors. Recommendations are good, but if they do not intersect with your preferences, your style, your unique writing voice, then they would not really help much. So that's what I have to say.
And I want to say that before, I know Shane wanted to say something. I want to say sometimes we search too far when we're looking for where to start from. You have all these people we've brought to the workshop. Those are recommended places to start from. Aside from Shane Larry Williams, Marlene, search their names. You can reach out to them on Facebook. And aside from they also, I know Jeff also is available. You can reach out to him through our own platform. Is part of our editorial. May Ebute is also on Facebook. Jeff is on Facebook. You can reach out to any one of these people and follow. You don't even, sometimes, in fact, I did a lot of my learning from just reading people. I go to this person's platform, I see what they're sharing, I look at the stories they've written. Sometimes you see announcement of prizes. Some people won a particular prize. I remember reading stories from even Shane Larry Williams was one of the first poets I was so, I don't know if he remembers this story of when I went to Lagos and I tried to connect with him to get his book, Gary for
I do, very much.
It was an interesting experience. I read the whole poetry collection, then it was beautiful. And one thing he said that is striking to me, and which I also always mention to poets, is that poetry is everywhere. I am a poet, but I'm not publicly known as a poet. I write poems. I have volumes of poems I've written that I've not published. But I've been writing poems for so long that it has even like connected to all the other writing I do, copywriting, stories for fiction stories that I've written, all of them. And so you can follow all these people, find their works online. From reading their work, you start seeing other writings that are interesting to you. Go from what is familiar to the unfamiliar. Because you may get so distracted when you are looking for recommendations, you start jumping from one writing to another without any direction exactly on what you want to learn. So we brought writers from different walks. The scriptwriter, Marlene, she's also a copywriter. Jeff is an editor and he's also a fiction writer. Shane Larry Williams is a poet. May Ebute is mostly a columnist and editor. So you can start from, following some of these people, seeing what they do. You can also look at Michael Emmanuel. Michael Emmanuel is one of our top editors on the platform, and he writes beautiful poetry. And he, of course, when you see the things he also shares on his Facebook, you'll be able to get information on what are the kind of people he reads. That's one thing I like a lot about what Michael Emmanuel does on Facebook. He shares details of the kind of people he likes reading, the stories, or the poems he has read, things like that can really help a lot. I read some books that some of you might not be able to relate with. In fact, the readings I read are most times not even related to writing. I have a book of statistics sitting next to me now. I'm also in a PhD program for those who may not know yet. So I have so many things I read. And one thing you must notice that all of them have a role to play in my writing. So what develops your writing, like Sheon said, is not necessarily you going to cram dictionary. Sometimes it is developing the ability to empathize with stories, to empathize with experiences, to empathize with journeys, different journeys, business journeys, cultural journeys, religious journeys, political journeys, empathizing with those different journeys of people. I remember recently reading the speech of J.K. Rowling, the president of Ghana, who died recently, and you can see the passion and the emotions that he evokes when he speaks about the liberation of African economies. And that gives me so much content for even when I write my own stories. So, and it's part of what I'm supposed to use actually in the story I said I abandoned. So, but anyways, let's just go on. I would not want us to label.
Let me say something. Okay. There's a lot has been said about reading, right? Like Dami just said, when it comes to reading, I always tell everybody that cares to listen, read anything you can find. Even if you are just doing fiction, read anything you can find. In fact, do you know, sometimes you might be writing fiction and then physics comes into fiction, something you're writing in your fiction. So just read anything that catches your fancy. Read. And then secondly is you have to develop your powers of perception, observation, right? That's another thing that is so prominent for fiction writers. That's why you read some people's writing and it's so it's just there, right? You have to observe your world, where you live. In fact, even the weather, if you have the chance, go and sit outside, just observe how the weather changes, observe people, right? Listen to people, eavesdrop. So all of these things are just as important as the things you read.
Awesome, thank you, Jeff. Sheon, did you want to say something before we round off the session?
No, I think you've pretty much covered it. So I think it's cool. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm happy that we were able to have this session. Really, it's been a great experience for me. And I believe that also for all of us who participated, it's been a great experience. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for also participating, putting yourself out there at such short notice. In our future workshops, we'll also do similar exercises. We'll try to make out more time. We'll look out for your feedback. I've sent a feedback form in the Telegram group that we would like to hear from you guys, your feedback on the session. Some people are going to watch this session after we've shared the recording. So if you're also watching this recording, I want you to also send us your feedback. And it's also a way for us to get your full name and details for a participatory certificate that we're offering everyone who attended. So if you feel like you want that certificate, we don't make it compulsory. We don't think that everyone wants a certificate for participating, because the knowledge you have is much more important, and how you practically use them is much more important than any certificate. No job that I've done since I started writing professionally has ever asked me for certificates. I've used them in a few applications, but really, I'm being honest with you, what's most important is the confidence you build by building your portfolio, putting your work out there, sharing your work on public platforms. There are so many platforms out there that you can take advantage of. And I also saw already some feedback in the form. Someone asking about wanting to learn about copywriting. Marlene Oluchi is a copywriter. She can guide you. I don't know if she has a training. I have a training program that's both for general writing and also for copywriting. So you can also reach out to any of those that are in this training. More importantly, if you let me know that you were part of this program, everyone that was part of this program has a discount on my training program, a 50% discount on my training program, any of my training programs. So no matter what training program you look out for, whether it's for the copywriting or the freelance writing, any program you reach out to me and say, oh, I was part of the workshop and I want to go further on maybe copywriting, freelance writing, or whatever, I'm giving you a 50% off on any of my programs. So, and I'm very happy that we have this collection of the most profound sessions. I've learned so much even from listening to these people. I have a note filled with so many things. I wish we could have more time to go over the questions I even wrote that the facilitators are supposed to, you know, have conversations about, but we'll try as much as possible to keep to our time and not over-labor the discussions. And that way we can also whet your appetite for our coming workshops. We want to encourage you to continue coming to the workshops because we are a community. We are a community, and that is how we've continued to build Itanile. We believe that by collaborating, working together, we can make African writing even a stronger ideology, a stronger community, a stronger force. We can even build platforms that will elevate other writers. You can see what Larry Williams said about some of his work was already outside and people saw it. A lot of people have used, you know, their works published on our platforms to apply for fellowships, for other contests. We see our prize winners all over the world doing amazing things. We've even had some of our prize winners come back as facilitators in previous sessions. So Itanile is, someone, George is asking, please, the word Itanile is what language? Itanile is a Yoruba word. It means stories from home or stories of home. When we were conceptualizing the name, it was a sort of collaborative effort on the team. Everyone chipped in ideas, we discussed. And of course, at the end of the day, for me, what was most important is that we were able to reflect what we represent as a platform. So Itanile, we can, depending on how you say it, Yoruba is very diverse that way. Itanile can also mean home is a story. And you know, the way you, no matter how you put it, it comes with a strong meaning that I believe a lot of our audience can relate with. So that will be all. I want to say thank you to everyone who came. Larry Williams, thank you very much for making our time for this. Marlene Oluchi, thank you for making our time to share your experience with us and how you've even spoken so clearly on what it means to monetize. Jeff, you know that I believe so much in your insight when it comes to editorial, and you know, you've really helped a lot of writers that I know, even including myself. You know how I throw my writings to you even on the team. So for me, I believe that the insight you bring to conversations like this is profound. I don't want to not elaborate properly on that. So please continue to give those insightful thoughts, and even on the platform, we look forward to seeing much more about how writers can improve their capacity to develop their stories. And also May, thank you so much for making our time. I really appreciate all the, in fact, the way you went into details with all the ideas. Every one of you, the facilitators, it was a powerful experience for me. I can't say enough how much this was. It's also validated a lot of the things I also try to share with those who work with me or who have come to me to say, okay, how can I develop my stories? And I hope that when we share the recording of this with those that didn't attend, they would understand how much they missed out. But at the same time, they won't miss out entirely. I think that is also very important for me. So please check the group for our feedback form, and let us know what you think about this session. Also tell us what you think you might be expecting for future workshops. Anything you have to say in the feedback, we really appreciate it. So thank you very much. That is where we're going to end this session today. Please visit itanile.org to register, to subscribe, send us submissions, send us your thoughts, send us essays, send us articles, send us interviews, whatever. And if you want to work with any of our exhibitors, that's horizontal, Agile Prep Pro, because that's their core focus, which is Agile Prep Pro. If you want to work with Agile Prep Pro and help them to write their copy, then please reach out to Mazi, Sadiq, Daniel. Also, if you want to work with or get support from Collins Elesiro and Crystal Links Edu, I would encourage you to also reach out to them. I think they've dropped their details. The link about how to make pitches, I'll drop it in the group. So guys, thank you very much and have a wonderful weekend. That is where we'll stop today. Michael, I think we're done, right? Michael? All right, have a wonderful day, guys. I think Michael has slept. Bye.